Good day and welcome to the third part of the engineering mechanics tutorial. The topics for this session are scalar and vector, parallelogram law, triangle law, and system units. So let's define scalar. Scalar is quantities which possess magnitude only and can be added arithmetically are defined as scalar quantities. So, scalar is containing only the magnitude, and the best description for scalar is two-dimensional or 2D. Next is the vector. Vector are quantities which both magnitude and directions. We can describe it as a three-dimensional, and vector has the magnitude when it goes on a straight line or it goes forward. It has direction, it has a choice when it can go to left or right. It's three-dimensional. So parallelogram law states that the resultant of two forces is the diagonal of the parallelogram formed on the vectors of these forces, meaning to say that the two forces can form parallelogram. Then the diagonal of the parallelogram can form the resultant of the two forces. Next is the triangle law, and it states that the resultant of two forces placed on tip to tail is the third side of the triangle, whose direction of the resultant being from tail of the first vector to the tip of the last vector. So for example, there are two forces that are putted in the Cartesian plane, namely P1 and P2. In order to get the total resultant, we must first connect the tail of P2 to the tip of the arrow in P1. Then, we must create an arrow starting from the tail of P1 and going to the tip of P2. So that is the resultant. So next is, we have an example problem, number 103. Draw the resultant of the force shown using parallelogram and triangle law. So in this, the solution to get the parallelogram law method is to combine first P1 and P2 forming a parallelogram. Then draw a diagonal from the parallelogram formed starting at 0 that gives us the resultant 1. Then combine resultant 1 and P3 forming a parallelogram. So lastly, draw a diagonal from the parallelogram formed starting at 0 that gives us the total resultant of the three forces. So according to the solution of the parallelogram method, we must first combine P1 and P2 to form a parallelogram. And then next is to draw a diagonal from the parallelogram starting from 0, starting from here up to here, so that we could get the resultant 1. So next step is to combine the resultant 1 to P1 to form another parallelogram. And then after that, we could draw a diagonal line starting from here up to here, so that the total resultant of these three forces could be obtained. And this is the total resultant. So next Solutions using triangle law method. Place P2 at the tip of P1 without changing its magnitude and direction. Next step is to place P3 at the tip of P2 with no change in its magnitude and direction. And finally, draw the resultant force starting from the tail of the first vector P1 towards the tip of the last vector P3. So, triangle law is like this. We are going to place the P2 at the tip of P1 without changing the magnitude of the direction. So, P1, P2. Next step is to place P3 to the tip of the P1 here with no changes in magnitude and direction. So, P1, P2, P3. So, in order to get the total resultant in this force, we could simply draw the resultant force here starting from 0 going to the tip of P3. So this is the total resultant force, and disregarding those two, so this is the triangle law. Why is that this is called triangle law? When you form a line in the middle of this, you can form a triangle. So next is the system of units. There are two systems of units used for measurement: the English system and the metric system. So the English system units are measurements mainly used in England. Next is metric units. So metric units was proposed in 1791 and it was adopted by the French or in France in 1795. So next is the SI units, meaning International System of Units. It was abbreviated as System International. And this is called the modern form of metric system and mainly the universal system of measurement officially used in the whole world. So that's it. Thank you for watching this tutorial.